Welcome to It's a Broker Thing podcast, brought to you by Bluestone Home Loans. Each episode will dive into market updates, practical insights, and real stories for brokers who want to stay ahead, build stronger relationships, and grow their business. Let's dive in. Welcome to the first episode of It's a Broker Thing, brought to you by Bluestone Home Loans. I'm your host, Tony MacRae, and today we're diving into one of the big challenges brokers face. That's building trust with clients in a competitive market. Joining me today is Blake Buchannan, General Manager of SFG, someone who knows this space inside out. So today we'll explore why trust is your edge, how to stay ahead beyond just rates, and practical ways of creating lasting client relationships. Blake, it's great to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're too kind. It's great to be here, mate. Thank you.
Mate, before we jump into, partnerships and trust and all of those sorts of things, let's just have a look at the general market. Property markets are still running hot at the moment, and I think brokers are reaping the benefits of that. And we're well and truly into that whole, beyond spring, but summer buying and selling sort of market. But what are your brokers telling you and you're hearing on the street?
Well, I'll tell you that they're very, very busy, Tone. We've seen volumes climb, not just for a period of months and through this selling season, but for a period of years now. So there's a little bit of broker fatigue. I think the government incentives and schemes couldn't have come at a worse time. There's a huge undersupply issue, which is keeping property prices really lofty. And when you alleviate pressures on serviceability to 95% ownership, it creates repayment pressures for consumers. And you're quite right. The interest rate markets, 6 months ago, we were predicting several cuts. But gee, the market is buoyant in inflation, and so it's going to be a hold or possibly even an increase. And so these people buying at 95% have big debts to repay, and I worry for them.
Yeah, you talk about the incentive schemes that are in place at the moment. It appears all the focus at the moment is on the demand side of the issue. But as far as I can sort of work out and what I'm hearing in the marketplace, we don't really have a demand issue. And there seems to be very little happening on that supply side. What can we do on that front?
Well, listen, the government has a habit these days of putting Band-Aids over problems. Now, obviously, first home ownership is very, very difficult, so they make it easier to buy without addressing the supply issue side of things. And as we would have seen in the last 4 months since the scheme was coming in and has been brought into the markets, those property prices in those lower price brackets have climbed exponentially to a factor of above 1% per month in the last couple of months. And so any savings they might have got by getting into a property are eroded by the additional prices they're going to have to pay for it.
How do as an industry, how do we react to that, and how do we ensure that we're not overcommitting customers and setting up problems down the track?
Well, this is where it's a big machine and it's a political beast, and we need to approach and lobby the government about our insights. Now, we heard recently in this most recent scheme that the government didn't even consult the RBA on the potential outcomes of some of the issues of a scheme like this. So I just think we need to continue to lobby the government to listen to what we know. Tony, we write nearly all the loans in the marketplace, nearly all of them, we're around that 80% percentile. They should be listening to us about our expertise and what we see in the lending and property markets.
Are they? I know you've been involved in some lobbying in the past. Do you get the sense that they're listening and taking it in and then reacting to it, or is it, as you said earlier, just let's Band-Aid and keep populist policies front of mind?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think it's populist policies front of mind. I think when you meet them, they've got all their notaries around the room for those of you that haven't been in these rooms before, and they take lots and lots of notes, and they promise to follow up with actions. And then, of course, the actions are never followed up, and it's just a big wheel, many little cogs, and it takes a long time to turn it. So we won't stop though, Tone. We'll just keep pressing.
Part of the irony of this is affordability is a big issue here, but actually these policies are driving down affordability and probably contributing to what now may be a shift in the interest rate cycle, because rents have gone up, one of the biggest contributors to CPI. And so it's just having a counterproductive impact.
Agreed. And this is the problem. When you've got a problem, we need to address the root cause, which is the supply issue. You know, we cast our minds back to COVID, Ukraine, Russia, and petrol prices went up. So to keep the country moving at the time, the government removed some of the fuel excise to make fuel more affordable. We're in a construction problem at the moment, a massive problem. Why aren't we looking at reducing some of the red tape and the tax burden so we can build more properties at cheaper rates that become more affordable to people?
Yeah, I'm living this, and I think you'll recall last time we actually caught up. I was in and out on the phone as Lachlan, my son, was bidding on a property. So he settles Friday on that place. But you know, the reality is, it's a challenging market for particularly young mid-20s to get into today.
Yeah, well, congratulations to Lachlan. As I said to you, I've got 4 young kids. My oldest is 14, and so I'm very concerned about his future prospects of home ownership in Australia. You know, the great Australian dream seems to be eroding, particularly in your capital cities, particularly in Sydney, where I live. So we need to do something. They need to listen. I think they're starting to listen. I think that when they see the impacts of these increased property prices, it might cause them to rethink next year. But at the end of the day, with no disrespect, politicians will politic, and I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, look, we could do a whole podcast on in this particular topic, and probably we should get back and do it. But let's change tack just for a minute and talk about the importance of the broker-client relationship and building trust. So, in your eyes, what does trust look like between a broker and client relationship?
Well, trust is somebody that you know, like, and you respect. And the caveat there is probably on the like part. You don't have to like somebody to have respect and trust of them. I think there's been a bit of a seismic shift in the course of the last 15 or so years to today. I think 15 years ago, and you'll recall, I think brokers were still emerging, they were still finding their feet. There wasn't a whole lot of regulation around, and it was a salesman's market. And when they got that sale, they'd do anything not to disrupt it. So the client was king. I won't try and cross-sell or advise too much. I'll keep it simple for them, and I'll transact and get the comms. I think that mentality of I'm lucky to have the customer, so I can't do anything to disrupt that relationship, has shifted to today, where the succeeding brokers, the brokers with solid businesses, repeat clients, and great trust, they've taken it from I'm lucky to have the client to the client's really lucky to have me advising them on this journey of their finance.
Is that a risk? Because I look at it and as you know, I've been in this industry for some time now. And when I first joined the broking industry, brokers were the challengers. They were the minority of loans being written, under 50%. Now they're clearly market leaders. Nearly 80% of all home loans are written through brokers. So now they're the main game in town. How do brokers maintain that trust and don't step in to the arrogance that the main game in town of 15 years ago fell into?
Well, I think in the lending environments, brokers have more regulations that they need to adhere to, and that implies trust straight away with best interest duty. Now, good brokers before that were always adhering to best interest duty. They just didn't have to notarize it, whereas nowadays they do, and I think that builds a lot of credibility anyway, implied trust with your customer. You're quite right. Arrogance is one thing, but getting great advice is another thing. Now, our success has been intertwined with good advice, good trust rapport with customers, but excellent delivery and outcomes. We can see that through the AFCA complaints, where broker complaints to AFCA are practically non-existent. They're less than 1%. So brokers as a whole are doing a really great job. Where we need to be careful about some of the traps is over-spruiking things that we shouldn't be spruiking, diving into unregulated areas and trying to advise customers at a broad level, not at an individual level. And we're seeing some of those effects now with people pulling out of trust funding and a few other things. I guess at 80%, Tone, it's ours to lose. And this is what we need to be really cautious of as an industry. Every relationship we build, whether it be with lender, client, regulator, etc., is an opportunity to grow the industry, not just yourself, and we have to prove that case every single time. The reason being is because at that 80% penetration rate, might go to 90, we're not sure, But that's going to be the cap. We'll never get to 100%. Now we've climbed to the peak of penetration. It's ours to lose. So we need to focus on our weak spots and make sure we don't have any.
You mentioned best interest duty. Has that been a positive or is it a hindrance or has it just really been a positioning thing that's already been happening and we've just shone a light on it?
Look, it's always been happening, but brokers never had to write down their thoughts. I refer to bid as kind of like when you're at maths in school, you'd get the quiz, you'd give the answer and get it right. But because you didn't show you're working, you would fail or get a B or a C. Best interest duty is really about showing you're working. And I think for a number of brokers that didn't have to do it and were long-term brokers, they got really annoyed with that, with the additional steps they had to take for the same net result, really. But for the brokers that have come into the industry since 2021, it's a non-event for them. It's a non-issue. They tend to be more system savvy as well. And a lot of the CRMs, like our CRM at the moment, SFG Connect, it does all of your compliance frameworks and it's got AI built into it to assist you in all of those note-takings. So I would suggest to brokers that it's been a good thing. It should be embraced and we should talk about it more because direct banks and lenders don't have best interest duty. Brokers have that responsibility and that's a great thing.
I think it's a selling point. And as you say, it's not placed upon lenders as in mainstream banks and can be a wonderful point of differentiation for brokers.
Yeah. Well, just going back to the scheme and these types of things, and I'll tie it together. So when I was in Canberra talking to, I think it was Senator Andrew Bragg, or it might have even been Frydenberg at the time, and we were talking about co-ownership schemes and incentives for first home buyers, my view at the time was we should ensure that clients get a best interest duty assessment before they proceed with finance, because that is the highest standard of lending in Australia. So if you want to go direct to a bank and get a scheme, you should be made to go to a broker to give some advice on that scheme by going direct, just to see if there's better options out there. Again, good idea at the time, great for the industry, snout in the trough, of course, but great for consumer, and that's the reason why I wanted to do it. Everyone in the room agrees, nothing happens.
Yeah. I remember that, the world was going to end, the sky was going to fall in post-Royal Commission when best interest was brought in. But actually, it's just rolled forward, and brokers, as you say, it's really just you've got to take better notes and documentation, but they still do what they do really well.
Oh, they do an unbelievable job. And the great news about this is clients are more empowered with education than they've ever been before because of best interest duty. So if I went to you historically, I'd just trust that you're my broker and you're doing the right thing. Whereas now you've got the burden of explaining why you're doing it to me. And that helps educate me. And that's a great thing, I think, as well, because we have kids. You want somebody to learn something, particularly around a massive investment in your life, something so important about how it works. You want to be able to impart that information on your kids, and so just empowering your clients with information enables them to empower others around them as well. And we think that's great.
Yeah. 80% thereabouts market share. Clearly, brokers as an industry have built trust with their clients. But what can undermine this? So, what are the mistakes brokers make when trying to build trust with clients?
So I think trust will evolve with you and your business over time. And I spoke a lot about this earlier in the week around, broker marketing pieces. So when you're starting your journey in finance, it's going to look very, very differently to how you build trust to when you're either halfway through your journey or at the end when you've got a big sophisticated business or part of one. I think that journey, you need to make mistakes. I think wisdom comes from experience. I think, I've sat across the table from thousands of people in different negotiations and as a broker as well. And it's all of those interactions that enables you to see triggers and work out ways to build rapport quickly or work out if you've taken it too far, they don't like it, to bring it back. So I think when we talk to the masses, we have to be careful to say, well, if we give you advice, you might not be at that stage in your journey to receive that advice. So I'd really break it up just for this conversation into 3 sections. You know, your initial rapport, meet as many people as possible, talk to them, but be curious and ask them a lot of questions so you can start learning what your clients are going to want to hear from you or what they need. You know, at the moderate stage of your journey, you really turn from that, hey, everybody, this is what I do, to I'm the expert at doing this. You know, you build your customer base, and then you start promoting to those guys. And further on in the journey, the trust and relationship might be a different one again, where you've got a team and you've got to learn to hand off the trust from your original know your customer interviews over to a team to support the transaction on the way through. So it's going to be evolving throughout your career journey. But I would say always do the right thing, be curious, listen, look for the symbols or the signs that your clients are giving you, but just do what you say you're going to do. I think if I reflect on trust for me, and as I said earlier, you know, I can't please the world, and I know that I can be a bit of a polarizing figure. I accept that. But one thing people can't say about me is I don't do what say I'm going to do. So like me or don't, if we have a conversation in business or other, and I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And that, by the nature of it, builds trust as well. And that's okay. You know, there's many ways to do it. We just have to work out what's going to suit you and your client.
So I can speak firsthand that I've seen both the polarising Blake, but I definitely see the Blake that does exactly what he says he does.
Yeah, thanks.
That relationship building trust in a world that's becoming more and more digitised. Is that getting in the way, or how do brokers do that from a remote sense or a digital sense today?
Tony, I'm so pleased you asked that question. So I'll tell you a personal experience that I just went through. So I was selling a property up in Newcastle just recently. It settles in January, so I've only just gone through it. And one of the things you do when you sell a property is you find a few experts in the area and you work out which one you're going to proceed with. And there was 2. There was one guy that would call me every couple of months and check in, see how I'm going, tell me about property prices, ask me if I'm closer to listing the property or other. And the other guy put me on an AI digital journey, and you could tell, and it wasn't great. So I went with the guy that was personable. I think we're kind of going full circle back to this client relationship where it's good customer service. So I would say digital and AI can create efficiencies with customer communications, marketing too, and building trust. But if you only do that without the human element to it too, you're not going to go very far. You need to add that human flavor. And whether that's periodically or not, you just need to engage your customers at a personal level, because they'll know you're using computers and they'll think you're lazy.
Because at the core of what we do is relationships. As you say, digital, AI, all of those things can potentially make the process slicker, simpler. But if you don't have that connection and that trust, because as a broker, you're actually advising and guiding someone through the biggest financial investment of their life.
Oh, you're spot on, Tony. And so this know, like, respect, trust stuff comes into it, of course. And if you're dealing with a computer, you sort of start questioning, you know, who is it? What is it? What am I dealing with? Look, I think they're fantastic tools, but the relationship part has always been a foundation, a bedrock of what we do. And once you remove that entirely, you're gone. And we've seen many business models come and go. You know, digital lenders come and try and break into the market. Their market share is so small, it's not relevant. And broker market share has grown the whole way through. And that is because of those relationships. So super important. I'd encourage all brokers, mind you, to meet with their aggregator, to meet with a business coach or somebody in technology that can give them advice on how to implement it well. All the experts that we work with will say exactly the same thing. They're trying to sell AI, right? But they're saying, but you can't get rid of the human element either. So everyone knows this. Don't try and over-digitize. Digitize for process efficiencies with the human touch.
You spoke earlier about that customer journey and you know, brokers connecting with the customer. Often that means, because the customer will be at a different point in the journey than just potentially getting the loan piece. And so often that means guiding a customer for a period of time before they get to that loan piece.
Of course.
What would you say to brokers that go, you know, I got to deliver the transaction, and I've got to get the next loan, and I can park those customers.
Well, we need to be a jack of all trades. So for people that don't know what soft skills are, go Google it, learn some soft skills, and reflect on that after each customer interaction if you're new to the journey of building trust. So soft skills are about empathy, reading signs, so on and so forth. And we talk about individual customers. We can't just blanket trust or blanket procedures and say that's going to work for everybody. And the examples there are first home buyers, and Lachlan's been through this. Now, he's fortunate enough to have a father that's in the industry, knows the game. But for most first home buyers, it's the biggest transaction. It's their first time. It's the great Aussie dream. And they go through this huge emotional roller coaster. Am I going to get the finance approved? This is so exciting. It's daunting. So with great soft skills, you'll see a broker ride those emotions with the customer, nearly tell the customer what to expect emotionally so they know how to deal with it, set expectations and be okay. Whereas you're dealing with a more sophisticated investment client, you might be more clinical, more structured. You don't need to go through the emotional journey because this is a business transaction. So it's about reading the room.
Even with Lachlan, and he was lucky he had a really good broker on his side, because his old man, he wasn't taking the advice on that front. But even with that, it's still a daunting journey and exercise for them. And there's stuff that we live in the industry and just take for granted. And it was a lesson for me, just little things about offset accounts and other pieces that needed to be signed through the process that I take for granted. That was all daunting and new for someone that is just buying their first place.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of work to be done. And I guess this builds trust as well. I mean, some of the older school brokers that never had to do this work will get annoyed that we've got to do more work. But the work actually helps you set expectations. I think it can be easy to acquire a client, but it's hard if you don't set expectations to work with that client and build trust, rapport, and respect. And so with these regs that have come in, it actually helps you set expectations if you have the right conversations. Now, with a first home buyer, it shouldn't be, hey, I'm a salesperson, come in, I'll do your finance, I'm going to make this super easy for you. It should be, hey, this is a really big thing and we need to cover quite a few steps and we're going to go through this emotional roller coaster and it's super exciting and I'm going to help get you there. I'm going to guide you to it. And this is where we start having more meaningful, immediate trust building conversations because they think this guy's honest, he's telling me the truth, he's setting expectations. And you know what? It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a breeze. I've got a bit of work to do too.
I remember years ago when I worked in Virgin Money, and we were largely a research marketing company. So we spent a lot of time researching the home ownership journey. And two things were compelling. There's two high spots in buying a home. It's actually finding it and then getting the keys. And as a broker, as a lender, we've got all the crappy bits in between. And so making that as smooth and easy for a client is just absolutely critical.
Absolutely. Now, a client fumbling their way through themselves, it's a no-brainer. You need to talk to a broker. For the 20% that aren't seeing a broker, you just have to go and see one. It's like I relate it to seeing an accountant. Most of us see accountants, and the reason we do that is because we don't know. We're not experts in that field. They know. We pay them for the service. With broking, you don't always have to pay for the service, but we go to experts in that field. Clients should be doing the same. They should be going to experts in the field of lending, and with brokers writing nearly 80%, they're the experts.
So what role does transparency play in actually creating long-term relationships with clients?
Well, I think again, it becomes quite individual. I mean, there's some things that clients don't need to know behind the scenes. It might be a slight SLA delay or something like that could otherwise worry the client. I think if you set the expectation for 3 days and it comes in at 2, that's amazing. I think transparency is hugely important, though. I was taught when I was very young a phrase which was, do what you fear most first. Do what you fear most first. And for me, that's about getting the hard jobs out of the way as quickly as I can so I can get onto the good stuff that's after those hard jobs. People look at transparency perhaps as, well, I've got to deliver the bad news or whatever it might be. Well, no. The sooner you do that, it might be a hard conversation, but the respect is there. We talk about a quick no. all the time. Everyone talks about it. Everyone knows it, but do people always execute on that? Probably not. And I would encourage you to have those frank conversations with clients. Be transparent. Give them the information as it comes across your desk.
Yeah, we talk about it from a lender space that during the tough times, or if things aren't going perfectly, double down on your communication, double down on your presence. It's not a time to hide. It's a time to be out in the market and explaining and ensuring that people understand. Because I think everyone gets that not everything's going to be perfect, but as long as you're upfront and transparent, people will accept and go on the journey with you.
And that builds trust. That's a trust building exercise as well, which is where we're going today. And I look at trust hand in hand with marketing. Every opportunity to interact with your client is an opportunity to market to them. Through that client, you have access to conveyancers, real estate agents, perhaps accountants, family, friends, and their colleagues at work. Most people that get loans work. So we
hope they do.
We hope they do. Well, there's a couple of dodgy ones, but that is an opportunity to market through to these people. And if you're consistent, communicative, transparent, honest, build trust, rapport, and all of these types of things, how much easier is it then to get them to refer one of their network to you because they trust you? You know, that's what you want. You want to build that memory in your client. So when they're at the barbecue, celebrating that house that they bought, talking to their friends saying it's not that hard, you should get one too, and you should talk to Tony MacRae because he sorted me out. He's a great guy. That's what you want, and that makes your life easier as a broker. So do the 5 minutes at the start to make a whole lot more of time back and money in the future and help more clients.
You mentioned sometimes having to give tough messages, having to give a quick no. How do brokers do that with actually maintaining long-term relationship in mind?
I think that's actually a really complex question if you think about it. So I think part of the way that our culture is moving is that if you don't hear what you want to hear, sometimes people have a tendency to chuck the toys out of the cot and, well, that's it, it's all broken, we're not moving forward. I think we always need to take the approach of bad news with education. So can I say shit sandwich? You know, like it's got the nice bread on.
You've already done it, so
and so we give the reasons why things happen, what to expect, what the bad news is, and then what we can do about that next time or in the future. I think if we can get to that level, people respect bad news more because you're actually not calling them to say, hey, this isn't going to work and it's your fault or whatever it might be. It might be, in times like this is what people look for. This is the decision they've made and the reasons why. And so we avoid that in the future. This is how to avoid that. And I think that that's just more of a powerful way of explaining bad news to somebody.
It's the old saying, yes if or no but. It's never a brick wall either way.
Yeah.
And being able to, if it is not the news that someone was absolutely hoping for, painting a path and a picture for the way forward can be a salvage as well.
Precisely. And, you know, I think post that conversation where I've received that bad news and I think to myself, well, I understand why I got it. Am I partly to blame? Yes, no. But now I know how to get out of it and it doesn't happen next time. And you delivered that to me. So how can I not respect you for having that conversation with me?
So if you had to give one practical tip to brokers to build trust fast, what would that be?
To build trust fast, I probably covered it in a statement a little bit earlier. I'd be curious, but also know that they're looking to you to tell them what to do. So don't be afraid to be assertive and tell them what they need or you think they need to learn about this situation. I think be curious, look for the signals, look for the signs, meet as many people as what you can because those conversations create wisdom over time. There's brokers out there in the market that can wrap up a meeting in 20 minutes because they see the signs, they know what questions to ask, they're very good. The rapport and trust is through the roof. So if you can get to that elite status, that's amazing. But the way you get there is by having lots and lots and lots of conversations.
I love that theme of curiosity, because, asking questions and taking it in and then learning from it, because there's an opportunity to learn from every interaction, just makes so much sense.
Yeah, no, it's a great one. I believe that you should have many, many mentors. So, if you've got one mentor, how can you ever win? You'll just be following in their footpath. So you try and have as many mentors as possible. Many of mine don't even know that they're my mentors. And perhaps, Tone, you're one of them. But you've got to add your own flavour to it as well. One of the, in alignment with what I said earlier, I heard a story, I don't even know the broker's name, but as a broker, everyone he came across, he'd say, now as a broker, it would be remiss of me not to ask about your borrowing situation and see if you wanted some advice. That you would ask every interaction he came across, I'm not saying everyone should do it that way, but I just think that that's a really timely reminder of that message, that we're the trusted experts. We're here to help people. So let's engage and tell them how good we are and what we can do for them.
And that comes back to, we spoke a little bit earlier about best interest, but it really does. A question like that is at the core of best interest. But is at the core of how brokers have grown to 80% and differentiated themselves and add so much value beyond just the transaction of a home loan.
So, I've been in this game for well over 20 years, and I've been in distribution for the last sort of 15, 16, 17, I guess. I've always been curious, and it's part of my growth journey, what I had to do. I had to learn more than anybody else because I didn't have the qualifications, so I had to know the most in the room about our industry. So I'm a bit of a historian on it. But I'd ask brokers all the time, how do you find success? Well, why'd you get into it was one of the main questions. And they got into it because they love helping people. That was fundamentally why they got into broking, and they started their journey, and they probably had a terrible couple of first years. And you see them around today, like, Sure Financial and Finance Made Easy and all these amazing brokers that have stood the test of time, high volume, helping tons of people. And you ask them today, all these years later, why do you still do what you do? And the answer is the same, because we love helping people. The byproduct is money and et cetera. But fundamentally, the reason brokers are brokers is because they love helping people. Everything else is around that.
Blake, I think that's a really nice way to wrap up. That was brilliant, and I really appreciate you taking time to share your experiences with us today. So thanks for joining us, and thank you for tuning into today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe, join the Bluestone community for more insights and updates, and we'll catch you in the next It's a Broker Thing episode. That's a wrap of this episode of It's a Broker Thing, brought to you by Bluestone Home Loans. We love sharing ideas that help you stay ahead, because backing brokers, well, it's a Bluestone thing. Hit subscribe and join us next time for more insights and stories that keep you in the know. This podcast is for general education only and isn't financial, legal or tax advice. Guest views are their own. Bluestone accepts no liability for errors or how you use this information.